Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining this session, and we're happy to take you with us on your first flight with Microsoft Data Factory in Microsoft Fabric. Maybe let's start with a short introduction. My name is Ulrich Christ. I'm a product manager in the Microsoft Data Integration team within the Data Factory organization. I'm mainly focusing on SAP-related topics, but today I'm basically going to present together with my colleague, Krishna.
Right. I'm Krishna Kumar Rupmangadan. I'm a senior program manager with Microsoft Data Integration team. I pretty much work on data integration product, data migration, and I've worked in SQL Server, BI technologies, and connectivity in the past.
All right, then let's have a quick look at the agenda for this session. We'll get started with an overview of what Data Factory and Data Fabric actually is, a little bit of the history, how this basically fits into the big picture of Microsoft Fabric. We'll show you a lot of demos to give you a hands-on impression of how this looks like and what capabilities we have. And finally, we'll also show you a little bit of our plans, the release plan, what features are upcoming in this semester and maybe a little bit beyond. And then we'll open it up for Q&A. So questions we would ask you to keep for the end, and then we'll have certainly enough time to answer whatever you might want to know. All right, and with that, I think we can get started with the topic. To set the scene, maybe let me briefly introduce Microsoft Fabric for those folks who have not heard so much about it yet. So what is Microsoft Fabric? It's basically our latest data and AI software as a service offering from Microsoft. We launched Microsoft Fabric in October last week, I think, last year. And basically the idea of Fabric is to provide one unified service for all needs in the area of analytics, right? Data and analytics, starting with data integration capabilities in Data Factory. That's what we're going to focus on today mostly, but also notebook experiences for data engineering, SQL workloads for data warehousing, data science, machine learning, and last but not least, Power BI. So all of this in one unified solution, giving you a unified experience, unified product experience, unified user experience, a unified security and user concept, right? So basically all of these services combined on one platform also helps us to streamline a lot of the surrounding capabilities as well, as I said, like governance and security. Of course, we have unified concepts for compute and storage as well. Most importantly, at the core of all of Fabric is the so-called One Lake layer, which is the unified data foundation for Microsoft Fabric. In the end, you can think of One Lake as the OneDrive for data. That's how we like to call it in many of our talks. And the idea is basically to have one layer in which data is stored and can be used across all these workloads on top, right? So all the workloads can share the same data, work on top of the same data without having to use proprietary formats for specific workloads. All data is stored in Delta Parquet format in One Lake, and as I said, can be reused across all of these workloads. Another important aspect when you look at it from a persona perspective is that with Fabric, we try to address all personas, right? I mean, you see the different workloads, which are, of course, also addressing different personas, but also when it comes to looking at the professional developers, looking at citizen developers, even looking at business users, all of these personas are supposed to be able to work and collaborate in this unified environment. Now let's come to and dive a little bit deeper into the data integration story here. So when you take a step back and look at the data integration capabilities, which we have offered for quite some time, we basically had a very clear split according to personas, right? So we had tools for the professionals, like Azure Data Factory, Synapse Analytics, also SQL Server integration services. That was basically the tool set for professionals. On the citizen data integrator or on the business user side, we had Power Query, right? And basically, this split is what we try to overcome and are overcoming with Microsoft Fabric and the Data Factory capabilities inside Data Factory. So here you basically see the core idea of Data Factory, right? We're basically trying to unify the experience and the environment for both the professional and the citizen data integrators, bringing together Power Query features, which you know from the past, together with Data Factory capabilities for the professional users. All of this in a unified experience, also integrating all the orchestration capabilities, which you know from Data Factory, to basically enable everyone to work on in the same tool, share the same data assets, collaborate, and basically work in a unified and harmonized way. Now, when you look at this from a block diagram, high-level architecture perspective, you see that we basically try to cover all the important aspects of data integration and data management in Data Factory, like simple data ingestion in terms of ETL and also ELT, data transformation capabilities when it comes to harmonizing your data, joining your data, making it usable for your actual analytics, preparing it, right? All of that is part of that as well. Replication capabilities, you might have heard of database mirroring, which we already offer in Microsoft Fabric, which allows you to basically do near real-time replication of certain sources, like SQL Server is one of the supported sources. Which ones else do we support?
We are coming up with SAP as well, right?
Exactly, that's true. So we're working on a lot of sources which we want to basically be able to replicate in near real time into Fabric. So different ingestion styles, all the transformation capabilities. On top, we have dedicated experiences for all of these aspects. So we have a get data experience. We have an experience for querying and data preparation. And of course, we have all the orchestration capabilities, which you also need to automate and orchestrate complex data flows and activities on top of your data. All of this resides on a common unified data integration platform, which provides both the connectors, so the connectivity to all the sources, the security for VNet, also the capabilities to reach out to cloud sources as well as to on-premises sources via our gateways. So all of this is basically the common foundation of the Data Factory capabilities which we have in Fabric. Now let's look a little bit deeper into the connectivity here. The set of connectors which we're currently offering, and of course that work is by far not completed. We're extending this over time. Currently covers around 170 different source connectors. Of course, we cover all of the Azure data assets which are relevant for customers, but also what other hyperscalers offer. So all the relevant sources from Google and Amazon. Also other analytic solutions like Snowflake, right? Databricks, and of course also from Oracle and SAP from a database perspective, but also from an applications perspective, right? So SAP applications are of course also one of the main source which a lot of customers rely on and use for their data and analytics. The framework and this common foundation which we offer provides extensibility via a connector SDK. So in case we are not offering a certain connector for a specific source, this can be created either by customers or also by partners and basically plugged into our connectivity framework. And as I already said, with the gateways and the VNet capabilities we have, we're basically able to reach out to sources wherever they reside, right? Whether that's on premises, in the cloud, and whatever cloud it is, right? If it's running on another hyperscaler, all of that can be addressed with our connectivity. When it comes to data preparation and transformation, we have the capabilities of Data Flows Gen 2, which many of you might know Data Flows Gen 1 from Power BI, maybe also from Excel, right? You might have used them to do some data wrangling and some data preparation. This is basically something which we took from an experience perspective and have brought to the next level in Data Fabric for the transformation capabilities. So it basically allows you to do easy to use low-code ETL and ELT. You can really ingest data into Fabric OneLake using Data Flows Gen 2. We have more than 400 different types of transformation. It's an interactive experience, right? You basically work on top of the data and right away see what transformation you're doing, what effect they have, what problems they might cause, right? You see immediate errors when working with the data. So it's a very interactive and a nice user experience from that perspective. We made sure that based on the Fabric architecture, this is also highly scalable, right? So it basically resides on the Fabric compute, which we provide as part of the service to make that scalable and work at large scale. And as I said, as a main step ahead compared to what you used to have in data flows in the past, you can now basically write the results of your data flows into multiple different destinations, including OneLake data, including OneLake, SQL Data Warehouse, and of course others as well. On the orchestration side, we have an experience which some of you might remember or might have seen in the Azure Data Factory world. So we have pipelines with a similar look and feel and similar capabilities to what people have known on the ADF side. So we have all the standard activities, the possibilities to orchestrate things, put things in certain order, work with exceptions. All of these capabilities, also when it comes to scheduling, are integrated into this user experience. We also have the copy activity, which many of you might know from ADF for a simple, high-scale data ingestion in an ELT style. So all of these capabilities come out of the box with Fabric in the data pipelines as well. And I think with that, Krishna, unless you want to add something else,
no, we are good.
We are actually good to get started with the demos.
Sure. So all this while we had seen what is a Dataflow Gen 2, right? It's a data prep tool. And we do know what a data pipeline is, which is more of a data orchestration tool. So in this demo, let's try to bring them together and have a complete end-to-end overview.
In this demo, I will show you how the data flow and pipeline experience can create a powerful and comprehensive data solution. Here we have the homepage of Data Factory in Fabric. Let's start by creating a data flow. Users who are familiar with Power Query will appreciate the familiarity of the low-code yet customizable experience. With over 100 connectors, you can get data from many sources. As you can see here, I have already imported my two tables, my orders table and my customers table from my worldwide importer SQL database. Along with the two tables I've brought in, I have a customer's Excel file that I have on my file system that I would like to bring in. I am just going to drag and drop the file into my editor, and immediately I am brought to the Connect to a New Data Source page, where I can see that my customer's file has been uploaded. Data Preview allows me to see my data before selecting the data to clean and transform. Now that I have brought in my data, I'm ready to transform the data at high scale. Along with altering columns and rows, I can also merge and append queries. Let me first start by merging my customers and orders query. I can specify the queries I want to merge, along with the column I want to merge on. Now, I can see a new query with all columns from the customer table and one column with the nested data from the orders table. Along with merging and appending queries, I can also transform the data using Group By. Group By allows me to group rows in my query based on the values in the selected column. For this example, I will group by the related titles for each customer. Now we can see a new transformation has been made to the query, showcasing our new output. With data flows, you can set your output destination to store your transformed data. In this example, I will write the results to a table in a Trident data warehouse. Let's put in the server and connection credentials to my data warehouse. I will then choose a destination target and give the table a name. I will leave the default as replaced, essentially meaning that any tables with the same name will be replaced in my warehouse. I will quickly rename my data flow to Contoso data flow, and then I can publish it. And with that in my workspace, my data flow is complete. Now let's design our pipeline. Trident data integration includes the rich data orchestration capabilities that currently exist in Azure Data Factory. And with pipelines, customers can perform sophisticated data orchestration at an enterprise scale. Users who are familiar with ADF will appreciate the familiarity of a low-code yet customizable experience. Here is our existing lakehouse, Contoso Lakehouse. You can get started with building pipelines directly in the lakehouse. In this example, I will use the copy assistant to copy data from multiple Azure SQL data tables to the lakehouse. The copy assistant empowers any users to quickly get up to speed with creating pipelines that bring data to the Microsoft Cloud. Let's connect to an Azure SQL database and bring in some tables. Let's bring in 4 tables from my database. After switching into tables, I can see a preview of it as well. Then I can choose my data destination output. I can either create a new lakehouse or use an existing lakehouse. Let me choose an existing one. Let's give my new tables names. And just like how I did in the data flow example, I will make sure I overwrite my table just in case there are any duplicates in my lakehouse. I am provided with a quick summary of what I just did. And just like magic, we can enable users to copy multiple tables quickly to their favorite data destinations. The pipeline experience also includes a library of activities that will enable rich and sophisticated data orchestration. I can add a data flow activity to execute the data flow that I previously created. While data flow provides no-code transformation, we can also leverage notebooks for the code-centric transformations. Let's add a notebook activity, and I will select an existing notebook that I've created that sorts the products in my product table by color. I will save my pipeline, and now I will run the pipeline with the notebook and the data flow. And there you go, the pipeline ran successfully. I hope you enjoyed this short walkthrough. With data integration and Project Trident, we aim to bring the best of our citizen data integration and pro data integration experiences into a single, delightful, SaaS-delivered experience. In this demo,
Right. Now let's actually do a double click at the Dataflow Gen 2 and have a short demo, which would actually go ahead and let us know what this capability is about, right? So for this demo, we are planning to bring in data from 2 different data sources, ingest the data basically, and then do a transformation on top of the data, and then push this back to a destination, and then probably run this on schedule. So I'll go ahead with the demo.
For this demo, we have been tasked with a really simple scenario. We have the sales order data stored in Excel workbook, the product table data stored in Azure SQL database table. We will combine the data from both of these data sources, remove unwanted column, add new columns to calculate total sales before and after discount, transform the data to get the total sales by product using SimPy, add a destination to move this resulting table to Fabric Lakehouse, and finally, publish this data flow generally. Let us start by choosing the Data Factory experience under Microsoft Fabric. In the Data Factory homepage, Let's select the data flow Gen 2. In our data flow, let's start bringing in the data. We have the sales order details stored in the Excel workbook. So let's simply drag and drop this Excel file onto the data flow canvas. This action uploads the Excel file automatically to OneDrive for Business and then creates an Excel connection underneath. Let's hit the next button. And then choose the worksheet which contains the sales order detail. You can also quickly preview the data available in the Excel. Let's hit the create, which actually creates a query within the data flow canvas. Now that we have got the sales order details from the Excel workbook, let's go ahead and get the product table details from the Azure SQL table. For this, let's use the modern Get Data experience. Here, let's go ahead and search for Azure SQL database. Let's provide the server details, the database detail as well. Since I do have a connection already created, let me just go ahead and click the next button. Once we are connected to the SQL DB, let's select the table. In our case, we will go ahead and select the Sales LP product table. Now that the table is selected, let's go ahead and hit the create button. Once we hit the create button, a new query is created for the Sales LP product table. Now that we have the data from both the data stores, let's go ahead and combine both of these tables. So let me go ahead and select the sales order detail and hit the combine option. Here, I will go ahead and select merge queries. And under merge queries, let's go ahead and select merge query as new. On this merge query window, let me go ahead and select this product table as my right table for merge. As soon as I select the product table, I get a suggestion for the mapping. So the column pair mapping now suggests that I can pair based on the product ID on my sales order details to product ID on my sales LP product table. So let me go ahead and choose that mapping. It says there are around 542 rows that matches on both the tables. So let me go ahead and click OK.
So
This creates a new query called merge, which merges both the data sources. Now I can go ahead and
okay. So all this while, what we've done so far is we brought in the data from two different data sources. One being a local Excel file from where we just did a drag and drop, brought this onto the canvas, and the other one being Azure SQL DB table, where we just made a connection. And then we just went ahead with combining the data between both of these data sources with the merge option. So let's go ahead and proceed with the demo.
select the sales LP product table and click the expand button and include the product name. I do have a few columns which might not be needed. So let me go ahead and select them and hit the remove columns option. Now this looks good. Now let's go ahead and add new column. So let's click add new column, and this will be a custom column. Let's call it total sales before discount. And this will be order quantity into unit price. Let's click OK. Now we've just added a new column which provides the total sales before discount. Let's go ahead and add another column. Call this total sales after discount. So this would be total sales into, click OK. Now we have added two columns, one which is before the discount and the other total sales after the discount. Now let's go ahead and apply the group by transformation to get the total sales by product name. Here, let's go ahead and choose the product name and provide the column name, total sales by product name. Under the operations, let's select sum, and for the column, it's going to be the total sales after discount. Let's click the OK button.
So after merging both of these data sources, what we did is we went ahead and removed unwanted columns, and then we added two custom columns inside as well. You can see it's each of the actions are available as a part of the merge option that you see back in here, right? So let's continue with the demo.
Our total sales by product name table is almost ready, except for setting the data type of the column. So let's do a right click here and say change type and set this to currency. Now that we have our table, let's go ahead and click the add data destination to push this table onto the Fabric Lakehouse. So I'll go ahead and choose the Lakehouse option here, click next. Now let us provide the Lakehouse information. Choose the Lakehouse where you would want this table to land. Provide a name for this particular table. This will be total sales by product, and then click next. The next page, let's just leave the settings unchanged and then click save settings. Now we have successfully added the data destination. Our final task is to go ahead and click the publish button. But even before we do that, let's provide a proper name to our data flow. Let's call it total sales by product. And then go ahead and hit the publish now option. Immediately, we are taken back to our workspace where the data flow check tool has been created and the refresh has already started. The data flows can be run repeatedly using a manual or a scheduled refresh or as a part of a data pipeline orchestration. Now, our data flow has refreshed once successfully. So let's go ahead and check if our Fabric Lakehouse table has the data landed. Here, I can see that the total sales by product table is already created and the data has been moved to this particular table. So, through this demo, we were able to see how data flows could be used for high-scale data transformation. Thanks for watching.
Great. So with that, let me hand this over to Ulrich again.
Yeah, so you basically saw a couple of demos showing you where we're heading to with Data Factory in Fabric in terms of transformations and also in terms of orchestration. I think you nicely saw the pipeline features which we have, and also a deep dive into the data flow Gen 2 features. But what are we doing with our customers in the kind of classic products which we have, like in Azure Data Factory or in Synapse Analytics? Of course, we're not leaving these customers behind, and we recognize that a lot of these customers, first of all, have a lot of skills in these tool sets and have a lot of investments there, which they potentially might want to leverage in the Fabric world as well. And that's basically what I'm showcasing you in this next demo on a specific SAP-based example, how to use Azure Data Factory to bring in data into a Fabric OneLake. So here you basically see an Azure Data Factory pipeline. It's actually a Synapse Analytics workspace, but those of you who are familiar with these capabilities know that there's not much difference between those two things. And it's a super simple example of a pipeline which just has a data flow activity, right? And in this data flow activity, we're basically going to capture change data from an SAP source and landing it not in one of the standard Azure sinks which we support, but we're actually going to sync it or to land it in Fabric OneLake, and then also show you how we can use it from there. So let me see if that. Sorry?
You click here.
Ah, okay. There you go. It's actually easier than I thought. So here you see basically the configuration of this data flow activity, right? So you select and configure the Azure Compute which you're using. In this case, because we're moving data from an SAP source into OneLake, in this case, you also need to configure a staging folder where we land the data first before we process it. So that's kind of the general setup of this data flow activity. And the real work is happening inside a data flow here, right? So this is a mapping data flow in ADF or in Synapse. And it's a super simple one, which just uses a source, an SAP source on the left-hand side, and Fabric Lakehouse as a sink on the right-hand side. You could do much more complex things, and I think we'll also see that here. So let's look at the source side first. Right, you see that we're connecting to an SAP source with the SAP CDC connector. It's actually an SAP S/4HANA system, so SAP's most recent ERP version. We're connecting to the kind of analytics layer in there, where SAP has built a lot of content which you can use to extract data out of these sources in a very comfortable and easy to consume way. You have seen we have multiple different run modes for this case, right? We can basically do incremental runs. We can also do full snapshots and also combine these things to basically give you, in the best case, even near real-time data refresh from an SAP source. We also have a lot of capabilities to optimize, especially large initial loads. Like a lot of customers have huge initial loads with SAP data, especially when it comes to finance or even or also to sales. It's sometimes billions of rows, which need to be moved from the SAP source into the sink. And we have partitioning capabilities which allow you to partition that and parallelize these initial loads to basically maximize the throughput here. And that's kind of the setup you do on the ADF side in the source. Next step would be to move to the sink side, right? In the sink side, we will see, come on. Is it still moving or did I?
Paused it, I guess.
I think I clicked. Yeah, so just to highlight here, this is a super simple case, and that's kind of pure data ingestion. In many cases, customers will do a couple of transformations in between, maybe enrich the data with some technical columns. All of these capabilities we have, of course, in our mapping data flows in ADF. And on the sink side, you see that I'm using a Fabric Lakehouse. So we're writing the data in a Delta format into Fabric Lakehouse using Azure Data Factory here, right? Again, the setup is super simple. You create a linked service to that lakehouse. We actually have a lot of documentation on that, how to set up the connectivity from ADF to a Fabric Lakehouse using service principals, for example. Then you specify the sink name and the update methods and the key columns, which we need to apply the merges correctly or apply the changes correctly, merge the changes correctly. And that's basically all you would need to do on the ADF side. Of course, any more complex data flow would work as well, right? You can just replace the sink of any mapping data flow which you might have with a Lakehouse connector and land your data, maybe redirect existing data flows even into Fabric instead of Azure Data Lake Gen 2. And on the Fabric side, you see I created a dedicated Lakehouse for that SAP data. And once you click on that Lakehouse, you will see that the table which we just specified on the ADF side has been created. You can see the original SAP data here. You also see the ones of you who are familiar with SAP see also the sometimes a bit cryptic SAP data formats, for example, when it comes to dates and timestamps. And of course, you can use all this data right away, as I said initially, in all the in all the other experiences as well, right? So once you have landed the data in one lake, you can use it directly in your notebook experience. You could as well, unfortunately, I'm not a Power BI expert, but you could as well just create your Power BI dashboard right on that data as it lands in one lake, right? And that's basically how you would connect Azure Data Factory for the existing customers who plan to migrate from their Azure data estate into Fabric, or maybe who want to leverage the capabilities and the skills they have on the ADF side, together with the Fabric capabilities, how you would set this up. I think that's basically the demo here. Yeah. All right. So with that, sorry, let's move on to, oops, sorry for that. Let's move on to the release plan and the roadmap we have for Data Factory and Fabric. And of course, we're not going over all of these items here one by one. Let's just maybe highlight a couple of most relevant ones, which also indicate, as I earlier said, that we are actually addressing multiple personas, right? So we are not only looking at the business users, and we're also not only looking at the professionals. We're basically trying to balance our investments to address all of these personas. So when you look at the top item here with Git integration, that's certainly a professional data integrator feature, right? And that's something which we are about to deliver in this quarter. I don't know, Krishna, do you have any details on that?
I believe it should be available in this quarter.
Should already be available, yeah. Another interesting aspect, let's look at line 3 here, for example, the incremental refresh support for data flows Gen 2, right? That's a feature which we never had. In the past, you could only take snapshots, or if you wanted to do incremental refresh, you basically had to find a smart way to ingest a filter into a query. This now basically is integrated into one nice experience, which makes incremental refresh for sources which, for example, contain a timestamp or some incremental counter very easy also for business people. So this is something which is maybe more on the citizen data integrator side. Fast copy support in Dataflow Gen 2, right? That's again one of the aspects more on the professional side, right? When it comes to huge data volumes, we need ways to parallelize things out of the box, providing this as a service. What you saw, for example, in the ADF case with the partitioning feature I showcased in the in the mapping data flow, that requires a lot of manual effort, right? You basically need to figure out these partitions, configure them yourself. In this fast copy experience, we try to streamline this and make this much more automatic and easy to use. What else is interesting, Krishna? Copilots. Copilots are always interesting at Microsoft at the moment, right? We basically try to infuse all of our AI capabilities and investments into all of our products. And this is something which we also see in this area, right? So copilots for Data Factory are certainly also going to be an interesting thing. And that's, again, maybe something which is more relevant for the casual users, not so much for the professionals, at least in the first place, right? Enabling customers, that's the second from the bottom, enabling customers to parameterize connections, right? Again, that's something which is very, very useful if you're connecting to multiple sources, if you have many different sources, many similar sources, and don't want to create connections one by one, which is probably much more on the professional side again, and parameterization in general is maybe, as you know, one of the strongholds and strong features which we have had in ADF and Synmaps for a very long time. Again, here for the professionals, we're trying to find nice ways and smart ways to enable such capabilities, such advanced capabilities, without overwhelming the user experience for the casual users as well.
Right. And probably we can talk about the on-premise data gateway as well, which brings in the support for you to connect to on-premise data sources. So that's something that is in our release plan as well, because using that you can connect your on-premise SQL Server, be it Oracle for that matter. So that provides that capability right now. Yep.
Yeah, and I guess I guess with that, we're done with the presentation and would like to open it up for questions and answers. Please go ahead.
That's right. Can you repeat that question for everyone to hear? I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes, we did show the merge in with Excel and SQL. Yeah. Right. Right. It's almost the same what you're talking about. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question yourself for the
I'll do that.
AV system to record it?
Sure, I'll do that for the next one. Yeah. For this one, so we did show in our demo, we did show that we brought in the data from Excel and combined it with the data source from the Azure SQL DB, right? So your question was it similar to the experience that we had with the Power Query? I mean, Power BI? It's yes, it's similar. The merge query is going to do the same thing for us here. Yeah.
Sorry.
SHIR is, yeah. So we brought in the capability of SHIR into the on-premise data gateway. I just showed you something during the release plan, right? So we brought in that capability under one roof, which is the on-premise data gateway, through which you can go ahead and access on-premise data and use it within your data pipelines in Fabric.
That's also an important step when it comes to bringing together all the connectivity which we've had. If you're familiar with ADF and with Power Query on the other side, there's some overlap in the connectivity options you have, but there's also some gaps on one side over the other, right? And basically some like this merging of the SHIR and OPDG capabilities into one new OPDG version basically allows us to quickly bring in all the capabilities and all the connectivity which we've had in Azure Data Factory into Fabric, especially for the on-premises solutions. Sorry, I think you had a question.
We are doing the same using Spark. What's the difference in terms of resources, data consumption of resources?
Okay, so the question is about what's the difference between using a Spark cluster underneath for you to do the transformation as compared to what we had shown here, right? So as you would know, with Azure's, Azure Data Factory, or inside Azure Data Factory, we did have mapping data flows, which in turn does the transformation, the ETL work that we had just spoken about here in this, right? So for starting up a Spark cluster, of course, it might need a minute or two max, right? So all of this would again add on to the the complete performance part of it when it comes to your transformation design, right? With Fabric, we use the Fabric compute underneath, which uses the M engine, of course. So we're not bringing in the Spark engine inside the data flow for now in Fabric. We're just going to use the Fabric compute here. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, please.
I'll take that, yeah. So we are working on, the question is how do you bring in the existing ADF pipelines onto Fabric data flows, right? So we are having a pretty concrete migration story for us, basically. What we had shown is just a part of it where you can connect within your ADF pipelines, you can connect to the Fabric Lakehouse and land your data into Fabric Lakehouse. Apart from this, of course, this one is supported with copy activity as well as mapping data flows in Azure Data Factory. Apart from this, we are coming up with something called ADF Mount, where you can actually mount your existing data factories that are available in your Azure Data Factory, bring them onto Fabric Data Factory as well. And you can run them and kind of like move them back to Fabric Data Factories as well. You can convert them into Fabric Data Factory. So that's something which you can wait for. It's coming up soon. We got a question on the screen, so yeah, go ahead.
Yes, so can you currently connect to an ADF instance in Fabric between a VNet and external network, or would this need the addition of OPDG before it would work?
Okay. So I believe partly I did answer the question, this question. So if you'd want to, bring the Azure Data Factory pipelines, your existing ones, of course, we are building that capability right now through ADF Mount, through which you can bring the entire data factory onto Fabric. For now, if you'd want to do that, we would suggest that, you can land the data into Fabric Lakehouse and build your pipelines for now until that comes up. Yeah.
I think we had a question over here.
Regarding the API maturity, is it possible to call a pipeline with parameters? I am not talking about the connection parameterization that you suppose is really launch a pipeline with load ID parameters or something like that. And the second is the same API. Can we get all the Power Queries list that we get storage in Fabric?
Okay, so the question is about the APIs which we already offer in Fabric. First question was about parameterizing pipelines. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure if all of this is possible with our APIs already.
Right now, no, but we are working on adding that capability to parameterize the pipeline, not just the connection, the entire pipeline, right? So that's something that we have in our roadmap as well. Yeah.
And the second question was around like a catalog API for Power BI, so to speak. So basically to get a list of all your Power BI assets. Honestly, I'm also not sure, but
I believe
I would check our documentation.
Sure. Not just
Power Queries, sorry.
Yeah. So I believe when we come up with this capability, like what you had mentioned initially, right? So we'll add that support as well internally. That's our plan. Yeah.
There's one more question online.
So is Data Factory available inside Fabric now, or was that a Power Query?
So the question was whether Data Factory is available inside Fabric now.
Yeah. So what we did see is, of course, Data Factory within Fabric, right? So we brought in the Dataflow Gen 2 for data preparation tool. We brought in the data pipelines, which is the orchestration tool. Together with both, you would achieve a complete data integration capability within Fabric. So I believe that's what we had shown.
Still, it's important not to confuse the terms, right? We are still talking about Data Factory in Fabric, which is not the same as Azure Data Factory, right? So maybe that answers the question as well.
Thank you.
Yes, please. We do have templates on the pipeline side, yes. So like the template gallery, which you're familiar with maybe from ADF, we have something similar in...
Within Copy, we do have templates. It will show up very soon for you. When you create a Copy data assistant, I mean, when you click on the Copy tool, you would have a page where you can select from the existing templates. But I'm not sure if we do have one for the source and the destination that you had mentioned for now. Yeah.
Yes, please.
So I believe the question is whether Azure Data Factory will deprecate or go away now that we have the Data Factory in Fabric, right? So Azure Data Factory is actually a PaaS product, right? As in, like, we are going to have a separate roadmap for Azure Data Factory that will coexist along with what we had shown today, which is the Fabric Data Factory, which is a SaaS product. So we have two separate roadmaps for each of these items. So we are not deprecating Azure Data Factory.
All right, I think from a time perspective, we're not at the top of the hour, but at the end of the session. Thanks to all of you for joining. Thanks for many questions, many interesting questions, and we hope you enjoyed that session.
Thanks for joining us.